All right, welcome to the Modern Love Podcast. I am your host, Manj. I am a neuroscience-based life coach here to share everything that I know about self-help, dating, and relationships through the lens of science, psychology, and my real-world coaching experience. And today's a special day because it's my very first podcast, and if I'm being completely honest, I have no idea what I'm doing. A client of mine has put me up to this, so I'm going to wing it and see where it all goes. But today I thought it would be good to start with talking about why dating feels harder than ever. What are the challenges that I'm hearing about, that I'm seeing, and most importantly, what can you do about it? So lots to talk about, and before we get into it all, please do hit that follow button and share this podcast with anyone who might be interested in all things dating and relationships. Now, since this is the first episode and you probably never even heard from me, let me give you a quick rundown of who I am, why I'm here, so you can decide if you want to stick around. I know everyone is launching a podcast these days. I feel a bit cringy doing it myself. But hey, I'm coming at it at a different angle to most. I wouldn't say I'm your typical life coach. I'm definitely not a therapist or psychologist. I'm all about neuroscience-based coaching. So I focus very heavily on science and the psychology of human behavior. I'm fascinated about how our brain works, why we believe what we do, why we behave the way we do, and how we can actually rewire those patterns and create change in our lives. But I'll be honest as well that at the end of the day, all this is really about for me is helping people find happiness and love. Cringy, I know, but it's actually something that's really dear to my heart, and it's something that I care about a lot. You know, helping people navigate this minefield right now and also get out of their own way is something that I'm passionate about because I've been through the same struggles myself. You know, there was a long time when I wondered if I would ever break my own cycle of rejection and chasing people who didn't want me, my own self-doubt and insecurities. And I got through that. I've seen what really works. A lot of it was anti-cliche, it was anti what was being told in the self-help world at the time. So I have a really good experience firsthand, but obviously I've also spent time coaching and creating results with real people, not just influencing on Instagram. Now, I won't pretend to have a first-hand experience of online dating lately. I have been married happily for 4 years now, but I do speak to people every single day about what's going on, and clearly through the extensive coaching experience I've had, over 500 clients across 23 countries, has given me some really good views and opinions of why dating feels hard and what people can do to actually find their person. And if you want some more confidence in my own kind of credibility, you can also check out my articles on Medium, where I've had over 3 million views, been very lucky. And I think why that content has resonated so much is because it really is focused on what practical steps can you take to find love, to change your patterns and actually break any cycles you're experiencing. Now, on to today, really talking about what are those challenges that I think are impacting modern dating. And if you ask me, I think there are 5 main ones that at least I find interesting to talk about. Now, clearly there are more, so, don't get on my back if you think, oh, you missed this, you missed that. This is just what's coming to my mind with the amount of conversations I'm having. And the very first one I want to talk about is information overload, right? I'm sure we can all relate here. There's just too much nonsense online, too many accounts talking about self-help, psychology, therapy, and I know I'm probably contributing to that in my own way. Not all of it is bad, let's be completely honest, but the problem we have is because there's such a volume of it, you just end up seeing opposing advice. So one person's going to talk about attachment and say that's the be all and end all. Another person's going to say, oh, that's nonsense, that's DSM-5 therapy, it's old, it's labels. Another person will say, just be yourself. Others will say, work on you. And what that does is it creates something called cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is when you have this mental stress from 2 or more opposing ideas in your brain. And it is a very uncomfortable space to be in. It's actually why mixed signals drive us crazy, which I'll talk about in another episode. But essentially, when you have this stress, this contradiction, your brain is determined to solve it Because you might be a person who's like, all right, this is the way forward. You see something that says the total opposite, and then you're like, well, what's true? And the way we try to solve it as humans typically, and the way that we're set up to solve this now, is to seek more information. And what that means is you end up constantly searching for that answer, trying to prove one way right versus one way being wrong, and you'll never find it because it's an endless search and there is no one right answer. And what that leads to is more stress, you get frustrated, and you give up because it's so exhausting, and you end up not taking any action. You just think, what's the point, because everyone disagrees. That's a really huge issue right now, and we'll talk about solutions later, but even for me, every day I start doubting myself because someone comes up with a compelling new reason why I should be thinking about things differently. I mean, look at it this way, like in my world, I'm being told every day to write content one way, and then it's, no, that was old, that was 2023. This is the way to do it in 2024. Same is true of dating and relationships. Number 2, as a huge challenge, dopamine addiction. Now, this is probably the biggest thing for me personally, the thing I'm most passionate about. We are at the worst period in the history of humanity for dopamine addiction. Now, if you don't know what dopamine is, it's this chemical that makes you feel very good, and it makes you feel good in response to a reward. So what we know in science is dopamine is something that's secreted when you eat chocolate, when you have sex, when you achieve something, when you have drugs, it's massively secreted. The thing about it though is that your brain remembers whatever behavior actually led to that, and it wants more of it. So it remembers, that felt good, let's do that again. Now, more recently, what we know about dopamine, and something that's kind of a surprise, is it's not just about getting a reward. So a reward might be, you get physical affection from someone, or you actually get into a relationship with a person. What we know now is that dopamine is secreted in massive amounts in anticipation of a reward and when there's maximum uncertainty. So when there's 50% likelihood of an outcome. And that makes so much sense. When you think about why the slot machines and gambling is so addictive, is because most of the time you don't know what's going to happen. You pull the lever because of that moment between pulling it and finding out if you got the reward. That's where your dopamine is released, anticipation and uncertainty. Now, how is this working right now in the world? Well, first of all, we just don't like to wait for anything. In the past, what happened is you get your dopamine from doing some work, receiving a reward. Doing work, receiving reward. Delayed gratification, we called this. You have to do something and get something back. Now it's not like that. Now you order on Amazon, sometimes you're getting it the same day. If you like a show on Netflix, most of the time you can binge it in one day. You get your notifications quickly on your phone, you send emails, everything's happening so fast. And now what we can also see is in dating, it's all about speed. We expect things to happen fast. We also, we get a little bit addicted to those notifications of swiping and seeing whether someone will respond, whether they've seen our story, whether they've replied to our message, or whether they've been online. And the other huge area is that it means we're a sucker for the chase. When you are not sure how someone feels, but you think they might like you, they give you some mixed signals, that secretes massive amounts of dopamine, and you're anticipating what happens next, and you do that over and over because your brain wants more of it. And guess what? Who are the people who give you the mixed signals? Who are the people who give you that those butterflies in anticipation? It's the absolute worst people for you. It's the ones who can't commit. It's the ones that are generally emotionally unavailable. And what happens to the people who are healthy, secure, just say what they think and what they feel about you? You think, wow, that guy's boring, or that person's not interesting. And you go for that dopamine cycle, which is short-term, immediate gratification. And so, I guess in a long story short, we just don't really want to work for things anymore. We don't give things a chance. We don't allow for that long-term gratification because there's so many easier sources of pleasure available to that, even just sexual encounters being one of them. So there's the dopamine piece. Now, on to number 3, which I'm sure everyone here listening to this has at least some experience of, whether it's through a friend or themselves. Apps seem to be causing a lot of problems. Part of this is that dopamine addiction I was just talking about, this swipe culture, the notifications. You have to be on your phone almost. It's so easy to get that hit. I also think there's an illusion of choice, and that's always wondering about, is there someone better who might come up? You kind of swipe on types as well. If I'm honest, me and my wife had this conversation recently. If me and her saw each other on apps, I'm not sure. Well, I would swipe on her. Who am I kidding? She wouldn't swipe on me. I'm pretty damn sure, because of these preconceived notions of, I'm looking for this type of person, this religion, or these interests, and basically judging it off a picture as well. Like, she would definitely have seen a picture of how I dressed back then and said, hell no. There's also all these other challenges with interpreting digital body language. It's hard not to make assumptions and put your prior beliefs on. And there's even a lot of talk from the people I speak to about algorithms and feeling they need to pay for better matches, safety concerns, and also just ending up messaging for ages and things never going anywhere. So, it's not perfect, absolutely not. There's definitely challenges. I won't say that everyone struggles with apps. That's not true. I've seen some people find their partners through apps. Most recently, my best man met his partner through an app, and they'd both struggled for a while. So it's definitely possible, and it seems like you need a bit more of a calculated approach. I'm just suggesting that there are some inherent challenges with the nature of these apps that take people online and create this kind of weird digital relationship that a lot of assumptions are made. The fourth challenge, and this is leading on from that, is from all the conversations I have daily, and I'm talking to multiple people every single day about dating and relationships, people are just flat out exhausted from their negative experiences, primarily through apps. I do have people who've been to, from a cultural standpoint in the Asian culture, people who've been looking at matrimony and these sort of fairs you can go to introduce to people. All around, there seems to be this just frustration and cynicism with, what are people really looking for? Everyone seems to be a little bit down about it. And I believe that does change your energy when you've experienced so much disappointment. And that comes across when you meet others. I feel it really does draw people in a similar space to you. And then it can easily take you into a space as well, mentally, where you're just looking for what's wrong or comparing the person in front of you to someone from your past, an ex, whatever it is, and not really looking to connect. And that's why so many people are trying to meet IRL, as they say now, or the cool kids say, in real life. People are really desperate for this organic connection. And the challenge with that is that a lot of the most successful professionals I speak to are time poor, and they're definitely not keen on going to some of the dating events, and speed dating especially seems to be disastrous. And I'd be lying if I didn't admit right now, that's a big reason why I launched my own dating introduction service, Nova. And if you haven't heard about that, then you'll be hearing more soon from me, don't you worry. But essentially, how do we put more people together in real life situations who might be suited to each other, who are on a similar wavelength and actually want the same things, they're serious about commitment, they have aligned values. I'm building that myself because I know it's a necessity now for this market. But that seems to be a huge challenge that people are facing, especially in the professional world. And then lastly, I would say there are some really unique challenges structurally in society. And I'll be honest that this is just coming from my perceptions, from the clients I speak to. That's primarily 30 to 45-year-olds who are looking for something serious, looking for marriage. They're kind of clear on what they want. So I don't want to, belittle anything else or rather ignore the contributions or importance of anything else. This is just what I'm exposed to, I guess I'd say. Firstly, men are more confused than ever. And as much as people want to hate on men and talk about toxic masculinity, it is a very strange time for a lot of very good people. and there aren't a lot of resources for how they can deal with this. There's definitely a struggle with men on getting on the apps and actually getting matches. They get far fewer dates. There were some crazy statistics recently that some people have to swipe 1,000 times to get one date that goes nowhere. And you can imagine how that makes someone feel if you're getting this perceived constant rejection, basically telling you nobody wants you. And, I know how much that would affect me, especially, not being in the very attractive books of others. Another really big challenge for men as well is that a lot of us are struggling with emotional unavailability or avoidance, as we would say in attachment styles. And the problem with that is when you've had that, and remember, it's not always your fault, it's just how you've grown up or what you've learned as a coping mechanism. It's essentially a survival response in science terms. That makes it hard for you to commit. It makes you really terrified of failure, terrified of intimacy. And it's not an easy thing to know how to break out of. I spent years in that phase for myself, and it was a lot of hard work from my part to actually say, you know what, I'm going to do something about this and find the resources. And to be honest, I basically had to teach myself to be able to get to the point where I could commit to my wife after 12 years. It took me 12 years to have the courage to go through and say, yes, I want to get married, and to have difficult conversations, because we were in an interfaith marriage, to have those difficult conversations and to say, this is what I want. The same thing for starting this business, years ago. How am I going to actually just commit without fearing the failure and the ridicule of other people? Men do struggle with this, and there aren't great resources, and this impacts directly, coming onto the flip side of the female experience that I'm hearing, of them, a lot of women I speak to who are ready to settle and they can't find that guy who wants to commit, or perhaps maybe more accurately, doesn't even know how to. And so they end up pretending to be these strong, independent guys on the apps when really they just have no idea what they want. And on the subject of what I'm hearing from women and my female clients, I think a lot of them are actually feeling like a victim of their own success. They've done so well in their careers, they put time aside for it, they've climbed the ladder, they're earning really well. And then now they're looking for someone in a similar income bracket, and they're also time poor. So it's almost like the choices are coming down. Another great reason for me to start Nova and that dating introduction service. But it is just a really interesting shift that I'm seeing, where I'm actually finding a lot of women who are dating guys and thinking, well, I want them to be on the same level as me financially. And I've even heard culturally some examples of the opposite, where guys are feeling uncomfortable because of a woman's success. I'll be completely honest about it. I've heard that directly on both sides. And then the last aspect of this structural challenge that I'm seeing is, this is cultural. I work with a lot of Asian clients, and there is definitely this unique period we're in right now where we're bridging generations. So if you're kind of in that millennial bracket, maybe younger as well, I know that if you're between 25 and 35 and you're a female, even if you're a guy to be honest, but there's so much pressure to get married. And in my culture, or South Asian culture, it's become quite toxic to the point that parents might even make you feel guilty about where you're at. They might, you might have even been told, don't date, and then all of a sudden it's, why are you not getting married? They can even make you feel like you're not an adult until you're married, like they can't be happy until they see you get married. They can use really hurtful language around, I can't die until I've seen this. And it's utterly insane, the things I hear. And I think it's just a byproduct of where we're at now. We're at this bridging point where you are, and me included, in this generation where things have shifted so much, but you feel a little bit stuck because you're so close to one side and also seeing what's happening on the other. But your parents just won't understand in a lot of cases. So, right, is it all fucked? Yeah, I'd say so. We're all doomed. No, I'm just kidding. But let's be honest, it is challenging, right? The state of dating, and I haven't even gone through everything. I'm sure I've missed something and I'm going to kick myself after, but it is harder than it's probably ever been. And a lot of that's to do with choice, a lot of it's to do with our information, how we're hardwired for our dopamine. But let's think about what are the solutions here, right? I'm big on that. Let's think about what we can do. I like to simplify, and my core philosophy is to focus on what we can control. And what I know we can control, everybody listening to this can control, is your mindset, how you spend your time, and whether you're dealing with your own patterns and growing. Now, when it comes to mindset, you have to become aware of the stories you tell yourself. Now, in dating, that could be the beliefs about yourself, it could be about apps, men, women, your type, anything. And the reason you need to know these stories and become aware of them is because they become self-fulfilling prophecies. And this is not made up stuff. It's not cliche self-help. Your brain is designed to confirm what you believe because it creates consistency, it creates safety, and it creates certainty. And that's what our amygdala, our survival brain, loves. It's not interested in what you want, it's interested in what you know and what is predictable, even if it's not a great outcome for you. And your brain's actually designed to find evidence that confirms these things that you believe. Right, so what we want to do instead is give ourselves a replacement belief. We want to give ourselves something else to build up, something you want to believe instead, so you can start creating evidence for it, right? And it doesn't have to be, my person is out there, or it doesn't have to be, I will find someone. You can make it a what if statement. What if my person is out there? What if I meet someone? What if not all the good guys? What if the good guys are still there? And the reason that works is because you're not lying. You know, a big problem with modern affirmations is you're lying to yourself. When you say what if, you take the lie out and you're thinking impossibility. Really good hack. Or the other option is to use an ing statement. I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm getting closer to meeting my person, because that implies a process. Okay, this is so important. Know what the story is you're telling yourself. Ask yourself, is that 100% true? Because it's probably not. And what do you want to believe instead? And take actions consistent with that. Now, the second thing, which is really speaking to about information overload and dopamine, is think about how you spend your time, okay? I'm a huge fan. Get rid of as much content consumption as possible, right? Reduce the number of accounts you follow. Really get it down to people you trust, only a handful, and get out of that doom scrolling, because it will rot your brain, but also it's going to cause so much confusion. And hey, if you have to unfollow me, then do that. Don't recommend it though. But, serious talk, pick a few, reduce your consumption so you can just open some space in your mind. The second thing there as well is to really focus on building life pillars. This is such a huge concept for me and my clients. Have 3 to 5 things that you do regularly that bring you a bit of happiness, a bit of joy, let you grow, and that involves delayed gratification, something that you can actually get better at. And the reason this is so important is because it retrains your dopamine. It allows you to meet new people, so great for that IRL conversation we were talking about earlier. It builds your self-confidence, but it makes sure that dating is not the 100% focus of your life, because when it is, that's when you get needy, desperate, and you just make poor decisions. So build those pillars. If you're wondering what that might look like, it can be anything. I'm big on my gym, golf, paddle is something I'm absolutely obsessed with now. I've got clients who go climbing, who do stand-up comedy, write scripts, travel, hiking, anything. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just put something in your life where actually you have to work a bit at it, you meet new people, you get better at it. It's such a valuable experience. And then I would say as well, if you really want to go deeper, consider thinking about what's been holding you back most and see what your patterns are. Now, next week I'm going to talk about attachment styles, and for most people, if you nail this area, you will absolutely, you will dramatically change your experience of dating. And I'm sure people have looked at this. I don't know how many people have looked at it through the coaching lens versus therapy, but either way, it can be an absolute game changer. And the reason we do is we're just thinking about, there are things out of your control, but this is something you can work on yourself. Rather than blaming everyone else, can you change how you feel about you? Can you change how you're showing up in the world? Because when you do that, something different will happen. And when something different happens, we can just tinker with that, we can iterate, and we can see where that goes. And then the final thing that you probably have heard, if you follow other accounts, is to start thinking about dating intentionally. Again, I'll do another episode on this later, but get really clear on what you're looking for, particularly in terms of value alignment with someone. Don't think about all these little red flags and all these traits that you're looking for. Think about, are our values aligned? because that's the thing that makes the biggest difference in a long-term relationship. You can make quicker decisions on potential partners, and then once you can figure out what matters most to you in terms of values, think about what's definitely not going to work for you, so you can have this strategy. You quickly cut out people who aren't going to work for you, and you can focus more on the ones where there is this true alignment. And it's not so much about, are they the perfect person, but is it someone that you can actually build a life with? And we'll be talking more about that in the next few episodes, depending on what people want to hear about. So look, that's just a few ideas. I could go on for hours, as you probably can tell from my ranting here. But hopefully you can see, while there are some things that do suck right now in modern dating, there are some things that are in your control. And now I don't know who needs to hear this, but I guarantee you someone listening right now is really struggling or feeling all hope is gone, maybe feeling low in self-worth or self-esteem. I'm here to tell you, no fucking way, okay? Listen, there is no question that it can be a minefield out there. There's no question you could have been through all this stuff that wasn't in your control and really negatively affected you. But there's equally no question that I know you are a valuable person. I know you have something to offer. You have a talent that you're probably underutilizing. All you need to do right now is to take that focus onto you and to really get back to what you can control. What's your mindset like? How are you spending your time? Are you growing as a person? And when you do that, I guarantee you things will start to shift in your life. Now, if you want to know more about how you could do that, don't hesitate to reach out. You know, I've also got the Modern Love community. If you're a professional woman and you're looking for more content like this, link in my bio where I go to Q&As and post valuable coaching insights. It's just generally an awesome group of people. Highly recommend you join that. But if not, you don't need other people to do this. You can get started today if you just think about what I've spoken today, or covered today rather. And that's all I've got time for this first episode. You know, it's very much a pilot. I don't know how this will go. If you listen this far, I am so grateful for you listening. And again, I would love feedback for topic and ideas. Don't forget to share this with someone who might like it. You can follow me on Instagram, manj.bara. I'm always replying to messages. I love to hear from you. Give me your feedback. Let me know how this is. And if not, have an amazing rest of the week. Thank you, and let's speak again soon.